That's not a light at the end of that tunnel, you fiend. That's a freight train. Another, more mischievous side, however, is steel manning the counter-argument, asking if that glowing light will take us far from this lonesome place. I could lie and tell myself I have no agency here, that shouting stop would be futile. I could just sit back with my bottle of goose and allow the Caddy's plush leather seats to swallow me into a void of blissful ignorance. I could convince myself that there is no need to second-guess any one of the series of decisions that led me here, and watch in luxurious comfort as Morty drives my Cadillac right on through to the other side. Thick smoke and debris start gagging the lack, but the old girl is a warrior. I'm able to hear the locking of the brakes, smell the rubber burning off the Yokohama tires, but through the choking chaos, I can't see a thing. Though a sense of panic could be understandably present right now, I can't honestly say that I'm able to feel anything either. With no time to brace for the impact, I cover the mouth of the bottle with my thumb and hug it tightly in my arms. The last thing I hear is the sound of the engine revving as the Caddy screams, "Never!" There is an impact, a mighty crash. Inertia's laws are followed by the letter. Every I is dotted, every T crossed. The first sound I'm able to hear is a high-pitched hiss seeping from under the hood. As the other senses soon start to come around, the smell of gasoline mixed with a whiff of menthol hits me like a meteorite in the windshield. Blinking my eyes open, the first thing to come into focus is the Cadillac's shattered hood ornament, staring me right in the eye. A feeling of great sorrow begins to set in, watching the round gems that line the crown crumble and fall. It's then that the levee of pain breaks, and a great wave of heartache comes crashing in on me. What starts as a chip on the beige line of the mandala cracks and spiderwebs until all that's left is a crumpled piece of cruel metal and twisted memories. I feel suddenly empty of mind or purpose or desire, as if the ghost in the machine just shrugged and vanished into thin, hollowed air. With my head hanging out of the shattered windshield like a guillotine, I'm watching a faint glow shoot up from behind the broken turn signal into the sky, along with the electric breath of my Cadillac. A shallow voice is whispering for me to get moving, but I need to rest. To rest, I'm thinking, and have just one of these questions answered. The Caddy was the only thing I ever had or wanted. It was the only thing that was real, that wasn't some pipe dream or an evil hallucination. Now I'm left with an exhausting emptiness and a peculiar silence, as if nothing I ever do will fill this emptiness. Nothing will be destroyed, but sadly, nor will anything be gained. The grumbling only ends after I inhale a sharp breath, and a stabbing shard of glass begins peeling the flesh from my neck. In my delirium, visions of Valerie start to clash with the shattered glass all around my face and throat. Her white ribbon and what mysteries may lie underneath flash in and out of my field of vision. My default instinct is to panic, but that must be resisted, as one wrong move and the jagged windshield will surely tear me to pieces. Sipping for shallow breaths, and with no mobility, I touch the tips of each of my fingers with my thumbs from inside the car, then see if I have the agility to rotate the lion's skull around my finger. I use the silver ring to begin gently tapping my way around the windshield in search of a vulnerability. With the iron-rich aftertaste of blood lingering in the back of my throat, I carefully start to punch away any loose shards of glass with the head of the great lion, careful not to slice open my pulsating jugular vein. My legs begin to burn and tremble from holding this awkward crouching position, but I must find the strength somewhere. My soul sliding away, I manage to wiggle a large chunk of glass loose, giving my head just enough slack to slide my skull back through. Tilting my neck far to the left, I catch the tip of a sharp edge that slashes open a trench on my face, stretching from my forehead down to just below my right eye. Finally free, I fall back into the glass-filled seat. the lap of my blue jeans quickly fills with a puddle of dark, dripping blood. While Mort grapples with the driver's side airbag, I mourn for the CDs shattered in the case and ask myself if anything is real. Staring out in surrender at the face-shaped hole in the windshield, chunks of skin and tangled clumps of bloody hair blow gently in the cold breeze. Gazing through the broken glass like a prism, I look past the battered hood ornament just inches away from the cracked steel pole of the red flashing streetlight. I could have reached out and touched it. We were that close. The airbag finally deflated, Mort leans forward, cupping his face in his hands. Had he looked over at me first, I'm sure he would not have said, "Jesus Christ, that airbag fucking hurt." Scraping the talcum powder from his eyes, he blinks them open and turns until he's looking right at me. Swallowing hard, I notice the muscles of his angled jaw tense for the first time. Whatever he sees is hideous enough to cause him to raise his hands to his face and lightly touch his own cheek with a look that could be mistaken for either confusion or regret. After a substantial pause, he asks me if I can move my neck. I respond with an affirmative nod just as the faint sounds of emergency sirens can be heard in the distance. He explains that he's wanted as shit, with one foot out of the open door. He nods at me reassuringly, as if we were still in this together. Then, just as he's turning to take off, he balks, sits back down, and looks me in the eye. "Look, Bo," he says to me, "those pigs are going to ask you a lot of questions." He waits for me to respond, like he needs confirmation that I'm not going to name him as the driver. After everything we just went through, his sudden skepticism causes a hopeless feeling of despair to wash over me. I try to speak, tell him, "Go, get out of here, I'll be fine." But there's a feeling in my mouth like my tongue has been stung by a swarm of giant African wasps, and unable to verbalize my disappointment, all I can do is lower my eyes and bow my head. Stepping out of the car to scan the scene, once it's clear that the sirens are headed up the exit ramp towards the billowing smoke, he dips his head back into the car as if he has one last thing he needs to tell me. Maybe he caught a glimpse of the other side and needs to describe its alluring magnetism before leaving me here to bleed out. I raise my eyes to meet his, and the stone-cold face of a blood-licking criminal I once knew softens to the face of something I might recognize walking out of a foggy mist. He reaches out a calloused hand, and with a look that convinces me not to resist, he locks his fingers with mine. My first instinct is to pull away, but it's like a spell has been cast upon us. His face blazing with redemption, he locks eyes with me, calls me by my first name, and tells me, "Hey, Bo, everything's gonna be all right." The confusion hits me like an industrial-strength shot of ketamine. Looking past me towards the back seat, he frowns at my Les Paul, snapped at the neck and buried under a thin layer of glass. Then, glancing over his shoulder towards the approaching lights, he offers one final nod. The fire trucks are the first to arrive on the scene. Their strobing red lights can be seen as the reflection in the broken windshield, and he looks at both of them. He lifts the collar of his black leather jacket and turns to leave, but not before dipping his head in the caddy one last time to say, "Look, Bo, just don't tell those pigs it was you." After he's vanished into the darkness, I can feel the bond of delirium we briefly shared sliding away. As the stinging falsetto of the sirens comes screeching to a halt, I spit out a mouthful of blood and teeth and a chunk of raw tongue, toss up my hands and say, "Yeah, no thit."